Hi, I'm Phil from Stick Security and welcome to the 6th attempt at recording this video. Barking dogs are fun. So, I suspect there's a lot of people in this situation. You have a Mifare Classic based access control system that you spent a lot of money on back in the day. And you know that Mifare Classic is a broken encryption standard and there are numerous ways to clone your cards. But when you go asking the boss for the money to replace it, the boss goes, "There's no money." We needed to be saving up for this for quite some time. So you're left with a situation where you have a vulnerable access control system, and if you say to the boss, well, essentially people can just copy our physical keys whilst they're in somebody's pocket, and they go, well, that's bad, but you still have to fix it without having the money to replace the system. So, we're not going to be able to fix that problem. We cannot stop people copying your cards when the encryption standard is fundamentally broken. But what we can do is make it just that little bit harder. We can just increase the barrier to entry. So what we have here are fundamentally two very similar cards in terms of function. This card is configuration-wise a copy of what I found in use on a site. I cloned this originally with my phone using a piece of software that was found on the Android Google App Store, and we've just cloned it that quickly using the flipper. And just for proof of the pudding, we have 32 of 32 keys found. We have all the sectors read, and if we have a look, if you are familiar with this, you will recognize what's essentially a default configuration. Default keys, and this is the way that these are set up when they're being transported effectively. You don't need them to be secure when they're being transported. You need them to be easily reprogrammable when they are issued to the end user, and that's the sort of configuration you have there. So now we're going to try and copy this card. Now this one, the two strips of tape on there are just to cover up the keys that I wrote on the back, partly because this card or a copy thereof is probably going to end up in a competition, and I don't particularly want to have to reconfigure it all again from scratch. What this is doing is it's got a dictionary full of keys, and it's trying them against the card. Now there's several thousand keys in here, as you may be able to see. The default keys were very high up in that dictionary, they were pretty much near the top, and as a result it managed to crack the encryption on that card very quickly. In this situation it's burning through all of these potential keys, but it's not going to find it because I set this up myself manually, and I know it's not going to find the key because it's not in the dictionary. This is something you can do. You can change the keys and make sure they're not in these dictionaries. That will mean that I can't come along, brush up against somebody in a lift, and copy the card. This is a good thing. Does it stop me cloning your card entirely? Absolutely not. This encryption standard is broken, but what it does mean is I probably need to at least get a laptop, or I need to go start sniffing readers. Every single step brings me closer to being compromised, and it just increases the complexity of any operation that's looking to breach your security. Now, we are going to use a slightly more sophisticated piece of equipment as well, just to prove the point. But yes, you can set up your readers with new keys. You can reissue cards with new keys. Is it cheap? Is it nice and easy to do without using lots of manpower? No. It's going to cost you some money, and it's going to be manpower intensive. But you can see the difference here. I can't just brush up against you. Now, we are still going to get the user ID, even though not user ID, the unique identifier. I always call it the user ID. Even though we can't crack the encryption, some systems are set up just to use the UID. You should ensure that yours is not one of them. Now, I've stopped it there because it's tried all the keys for Sector 0. It hasn't managed to unlock it, and as we can see, there's nothing there. It's not picked up anything of use from that card except the UID, but as long as your system is correctly configured, that is not going to help anybody. So this is a slightly more sophisticated piece of equipment. It's essentially, if you know what a Proxmark is, with a nice interface that makes it really easy to use in the field. So again, we're just going to prove the point that even something like this cannot do that kind of turnkey, very quick duplication that we saw initially from the flipper. So it's going to come up with go and sniff a reader, no keys found, thank you very much, have a nice day, computer says no. There we go. So to prove the point, no valid key, and go and sniff. And that just increases the chance of being compromised. So that's not a perfect solution, doesn't stop people cloning your cards. This, however, is something you can add on to enhancing the security of your cards. Now, you can set up the readers to detect these kinds of magic cards, but of course there's all sorts of ways around that. This, however, is fantastic. It has a piece of metal here at the back which absorbs the RF energy which is used to power these cards, and as a result they don't have enough energy to power the chip inside and communicate with the reader. This is fantastic, but obviously you need to be able to use the card. You squeeze it at the top, it moves your card away from this, which acts as a sink for the RF energy, and you can immediately use the card. It's one-handed operation, so you just present it to the reader and go beep, and there you go. The color coding obviously is fantastic. You can have different colors for different levels of access, so it's a very good way of empowering your staff to identify people who shouldn't be where they are. And the lanyard connects at the back there, which helps to resist that flippage that you often see. If there's someone with an ID card and they're not supposed to be there, you can guarantee the lanyard will have twisted and it'll be reversed, disguising the ID card. So these are absolutely fantastic way of reducing the chance of card cloning. I would never say it 100% stops it, but I have not been able to get past this with the equipment I have. So no, you're not going to be able to fix your Mifare Classic system. It's a broken encryption standard. You come along with one of these and we plug this into a laptop, we'll be able to crack this, or we can start sniffing your readers and we'll be able to crack this. But most importantly, you're just adding layers of difficulty. Every time I have to go and present a device like this to a reader, guess what? I'm increasing my risk of compromise. And that added complexity, it might make me think twice about taking this approach. Stuff to think about. It's still a problem you'll need to fix, but you might get funding to implement fixes like this when you can't get funding to replace the entire system.